Hello. So today's day 10. It's like almost a week and a half, right? It was a good day. Stretching felt nice. So yeah. So I'll just jump right into my reading because my meditation and my reading were definitely the thing that stood out today. I went a little bit further in the book today. I read the next part. I moved on, not far, couple pages. But I read about extending the meditation to other people today. And it was interesting because one of the questions that I kind of had that I've been thinking about was like, is this meditation just like something that you say in completion all the way through, in all its fullness? Because the meditation cycles from yourself, and then through others. But there's like three different, ways that it's put, through him, her, and they. And so Thich Nhat Hanh goes on to say that when you're meditating, you should start with yourself because self-love is so important, and you can't really love people until you do that. But then as you start to experience that and you start to like really grasp self-love even a little bit, start to meditate on other people. And he says, start with someone you like, and then once you've done that, move on to someone neutral that you don't really love or hate, that just is kind of like present. And then move on to someone that you really love, and then move on to someone that's an enemy or that you hate. And he uses a proverb from another teacher that basically says that it's kind of like a fire. The meditation is kind of like, igniting a fire. And he said you don't want to start with wet logs, and wet logs are, your enemies in the proverb. You start with kindling, which is like someone that you like, and then you move on to slightly, bigger logs, the like smaller logs, and those are people that are neutral to you, and then people that you love, which are like the big logs that are going to last for a long time. And then you can, once the fire's really going, doesn't matter what you put on it, anything, will keep the fire going, even wet logs. So basically, like, if you try to start by just lighting a wet log, like, it's not going to work. Like, you can't start meditation by, trying to meditate on the person that distracts your mind the most because, they've hurt you really badly or you really don't like them. So it was interesting. That's an interesting concept. And I've been thinking, like, what's the natural, like, movement into that? Because for me, I've spent a lot, basically the last, like, 5 days on self-love, and I still feel very, like, in that. And there's a sentence in the book, it's just like thrown in there, just like hidden in between everything else, where Thich Nhat Hanh says, when you move on to the next stage of meditation in like a month or two, then you can start, meditating on the other. And I was like, okay, good. I'm glad I read that, because I was like, man, I don't know if it's just me. It was just like sticking here, and I'm just like totally changing this for my own purpose. But yeah, so I read about, what it looks like to like meditate on other people, and some really good, there were just some really good like nuggets in today's reading about what it means to love someone else, and how important it is that that we figure out how to find the seeds of joy in ourselves and the seeds of craving and anger, because when we can do that in ourselves, we can help other people do it too. And just, I think it's really interesting, because so often, and I've said this before, like we see what someone is going through, and we're not really quite sure how to approach it or like how to help them. And I think that it's like anything else, like unless you've experienced it, you can't help someone else through it, and not completely, not with any like sureness. So it's so important to like experience it and, through yourself, and to like figure these things out internally for yourself, and, so that you can actually like carry these practices to other people. What are some other things? I also read today about, let me grab my book here. Stoke my memory here. Yeah, that was the other thing. That was, so there's a story that he tells about how when you start to practice meditation and just loving yourself and love in general, and you start like really being mindful and thoughtful and positive with those around you, and that this has like a chain reaction. And he talks about this story about a guy who comes to a monastery and he wants, enlightenment, and he starts to learn about the meditation of love, and he is asked to think and meditate on his parents, and he says, it's so easy for me to do with my dad because, there's so many things in him that I really love and admire, but it's harder for me to do with my mom because he'd always kind of had these, like, a negative relationship with her, whatever that meant. And so, the monk that's helping him pushes him to like think deeper into that, like, encourages him to keep going. And so he starts thinking about his mom, and he finds that there are actually a ton of really good qualities about her when he really meditates on it, and he starts to like identify those. And as he does that, he starts to kind of see his mom for who she is again, and not just through the eyes of his own resentment and bitterness from their relationship. And then because he starts to see her and all of her positive and good qualities, he starts to kind of let go of some of those negative feelings that he had toward her, because they're not as important anymore, because he sees his mom. He actually sees her, and understands her. And so the next thing he's asked to do is to write a love letter to her. And so he does that and sends it to her, and she's like so moved by it and so touched that she says, to a neighbor, like she wishes that she could do that with her own mom, because she had a difficult relationship with her own mother. And he finds out about it and tells her to write her mom anyway, even though she's passed away, because the people that we love or the people that impact our lives live on in us even beyond death. And so she's able to do the same thing with her mother. Even though her mom's gone, she's able to like identify the positive and start to let go of some of the bitterness. And it's just this reality that because her son did it first, she was able to do it, and she's, you know, immediately sharing it with a neighbor. And so it's like, who knows how far that can reach, you know, just moving forward and practicing whatever that looks like, whether it's, you know, meditation or just like practicing, you know, loving yourself or whatever the thing is that's holding you back, you know, identifying those things. Just even doing that can have a major impact on the people around you. And that itself could, you know, ignite something that is beyond you and outside of you. And that's just such an awesome reality and an awesome thing to think about when, you know, you're on the fence about whether or not you want to like dive into self growth, whatever that looks like, you know, that the impact of that can go beyond you, and that helps to make it a little bit more worth it, you know. So yeah, so that's kind of the gist of what I read today, and what I took from it. So I hope that you have an awesome day full of love. Love you.